So last night I went to see Mickey 17. I'm a big fan of going to the cinema. I really enjoy Robert Pattinson's work. I really enjoy the work of Bong Joon-ho and other Korean directors. But this one, to me, as much as I enjoyed it, I would recommend seeing it because cinemas are dying. They're a dying thing and we need to be supporting them. I go all the time, multiple times a month, and I would recommend going to see it. But it's not the kind of film where I think it necessarily needs to be seen in the cinema. I think it was solid. It was maybe like a 6.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it. It had its flaws. It had its pros and cons. It was a solid film. But despite that, I just don't know if it felt like it needed to be in a theater. Like, I think I could have seen that on a streaming service and enjoyed it in the same way. Whereas there are other films, even in the last year, like The Substance, where I feel like seeing them in the cinema is what made them feel, it was a unique experience to see them in that way. And I recommended The Substance to so many people. I said, go to the movies, go watch it on the big screen, see it. Ideally, if you can, see it in an audience with other people. My screening didn't have that many people in it, but to be part of that experience and go through the throes of that movie and have things revealed in the film and experience that with other people with the gigantic size of it that you can't look away from and you can't run from because it is squeamish, to have that experience was so unique, and I don't think you would have the same experience seeing it on a television. Mickey 17, I think you'd get pretty much the same experience. That said, there was a lot of spectacle to this film. The CG in particular was very impressive. It's a film that, if you've watched the trailer, revolves around people who are duplicated, like cloned, and Robert Pattinson obviously plays multiple characters in this film, all of the same origin, but there are two of him on screen at a time for a good length of the film, and at no point did it distract me from the film. Normally, in a film, if there's a character who's been cloned, or there's a copy of them, when people used to do that old YouTube effect of having multiple selves, I think I've done it at one time in the past. When people do that, it's really hard to ignore that it's that person, and maybe because that's a joke that the sort of effect revolves around, is that, oh look, it's another me. In this film, I barely noticed it. I noticed it at first, in the same way you would in the trailer. But once the film kind of got going, and that's deep into the film that kind of kicks in, I barely noticed it. A lot of the time, it really felt like I was watching two Robert Pattinsons beating each other up or interacting with each other at any given time. And it was quite a wild experience, and I found that very impressive. So even though a lot of the camera work isn't crazy, it's nothing wild or good. You're not going to look at any shots and think, whoa, that shot's absolutely crazy. But what is crazy is that within those shots, there is a crazy effect happening, and it's being conveyed in such a convincing way, at least from my perspective. Considering Robert Pattinson is playing two of himself in this film, his performance was very strong. His accent threw me off a little bit in the beginning. Guy's got range, but his accent has also thrown me off in other films. I remember watching The Lighthouse, which, incredible film, but his accent did distract me at times. I was never a big fan of the Twilight era of Robert Pattinson's work. His accent work in that is also distracting to me. I would rather he just be British and stuff. But I think that about a lot of things. When I watched A Quiet Place, I would have liked it if Emily Blunt's character was just British. There's no reason that she had to be American that I can recall. But then she just was. Just be British. It's okay if the actor's British. British people live in America. American people live in Britain. It can go both ways. There was a wide variety of nationalities in Mickey 17, so I'm curious why Robert Pattinson had to be American. I mean, come to think of it, I'm really bad with accents, so he could have been Canadian or something. I'm assuming that was an East Coast American accent. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm from Britain. I only know two accents. The performances overall were fine. There were a few that were a little bit sloppy. I'm not going to point any particular fingers because I feel like that would be rude. But there were some performances, and you'll know them when they come up, that weren't very strong. But overall, the core cast of the film were great. I think part of the reason that some of the performances were a little weak is because Bong Joon-ho is a Korean director. And any time I've watched a Korean film or Korean show where it has Western actors in, they're always a little bit not great. Two that come to mind are Lady Vengeance. I believe it's an Australian couple in that film. Not very good. And Squid Game. I can't remember what they're called. It's been a long time since I watched it. But they're the people who pay to watch the games. Terrible, really rough performance from the Western actors. In this, most of them were pretty good. Most of them were solid, but there were a couple that really stood out, and I think you'll notice them when you watch it. Usually when I'm watching a film, I pay really close attention to the music. For some reason with this one, I can't really recall what the music was like, which is odd. As a musician myself and someone who likes to do musical compositions, I just barely noticed it. And I think it fit the film well enough that I didn't notice it in a bad way, but it wasn't like mind-blowing. It didn't captivate me and like draw me in, so I can't really recall what the music was like. I remember it was loud at one point. I can remember the exact scene, the big crescendo of sound, very, very loud, very effective, but I can't remember what the music actually sounded like. So do with that what you will. So as far as I know, this was Bong Joon-ho's first film since Parasite. I know he worked on the Snowpiercer TV show. I have not seen that, but first film back since Parasite. Not as good as Parasite, definitely not as well written, not as concrete. It didn't feel like what it was trying to get across was as smoothly delivered. With Parasite, the message, I think, was clear, but it wasn't beating you over the head with it. This film really, really likes to hit you over the head with the message and the sort of like commentary that they're making, and they do it constantly. From around maybe 20 minutes into the film, it's just non-stop, constant social commentary, and it's very topical. I don't know how relevant this film's going to be in a couple of years. Parasite, I feel even now, is like 6 years on, still feels relevant. I feel like I could watch that today and get something meaningful from it. I don't think Mickey 17 is going to hold up in the same way. As far as performances go, Robert Pattinson wasn't the only strong one. Toni Collette is great in everything. I remember watching About a Boy as a kid, and that scarred me. Her performance in that literally scarred me, like mentally. Hereditary, fantastic. Probably her best work that I can think of off the top of my head. Just really, really great actress. And this is another really good performance from her. She's just always good. However, Mark Ruffalo's in this, and I like Mark Ruffalo. I liked him in Zodiac. I think was he in Spotlight? He's in loads of stuff where he's good. He was in Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. He's good in stuff, right? He's not good in this. And he's good, but he's not great. And I don't think he was the best actor for the job, is what I'm trying to say. And I thought the same thing about Poor Things. I really didn't like him in that movie. And it's not that the character's kind of shitty, because there's loads of films with characters that are kind of shitty. I just think someone else would have done a better job. And I know he's like kind of overbearing at the moment and in everything. But in Poor Things, I think Pedro Pascal would have been a better choice for Mark Ruffalo's role. I don't know. The vibe, it just didn't feel... I wasn't convinced by Mark Ruffalo in that film. And I wasn't convinced by him in this. I just think another actor could have done a better job. He was good, but I just think it could have been great. Okay, so we're going to get into spoiler-heavy territory now. So if you don't want spoilers, skip ahead. This bit's not for you. I'm going to spoil loads of stuff. Okay, so spoilers. Mark Ruffalo's character, carrying on with him, is basically just Trump. And it's delivered in a very ham-fisted way, where it's like, hey, look, this is Trump, and we're going to beat you over the head with the fact that this is Trump over and over and over again. And it wasn't really just Trump. It was like Trump and Musk and Bezos and Zuckerberg and any CEO, bigwig person in the world that you can think of who could potentially get shot by a Luigi. They are this character. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the character being those people. It's fine to represent them, but it was just done in a way that was so ham-fisted. Maybe it was intentional, maybe because it's a kind of weird comedy, like dark comedy sci-fi film. The genre was strange. I couldn't really tell what it was going for at first. Maybe that's why it was so ham-fisted, and it was just really bold in its message. I prefer when a message is a bit more nuanced, like with Parasite. I think it was subtle, maybe a little bit less so towards the end of Parasite, but this one lacks subtlety the whole way through the film. Maybe that's just what it was going for. For me, it felt like a little bit too much. There was a lot of imagery in this film, a lot of direct correlations. The assassination of Trump, Holocaust, birthright citizenship being revoked, loads of stuff like that. There were even MAGA hats. Like, they didn't say MAGA on them, but they said something like, I want to say it was like the only one or something like that. It was something basically saying that they're trying to make a pure race on a new planet. It was very Hitler-esque and it was very Trump-esque. but it was just a little bit too much for me. If you want to communicate a message to me, don't do it that aggressively. I did like that a lot of it was conveyed in the sort of like the universe and what's happening in the universe, and people not just saying it. I prefer that than like a shit to, oh no. Sorry about that, my light died. So there's a lot of imagery in this film. I just wish it was conveyed with a little more subtlety. I imagine most of us can relate to the Mickey character feeling expendable, feeling disposable, not feeling particularly important, especially to the people who are higher up in the chain of command in any industry. CEOs in particular, again, getting assassinated, getting shot down in the street. We all feel that disrespect and sort of like lack of appreciation from those above us. And I think that's part of what the message of the film is going for. It just does it very, very aggressively. Like, it's funny in how it does it. It is funny. It amused me a lot. Like, one of the things I liked about Mark Ruffalo in this film was overly straight teeth. I don't know, they must have been like fake implants, but they're so straight and so white. And he does this thing where he's like licking the teeth a lot. I don't know if that's something people do when they have implanted teeth, but you could not notice it. And it was an effective character choice. I liked it a lot. It was kind of reminiscent of Heath Ledger, like licking at the scars when he was the Joker. It was just subtle character choice, but it was very effective in communicating things about the character without saying them. I did like the character of Mickey. I thought he was very relatable, very sympathetic, but I was confused about when the multiple situation kicks in, when there are two of them, why Mickey 18 is so different, because they're both cloned from the same like save file, you could say. So they process him in this machine and they have all of his DNA and they remake him out of like scrap organic material, and then they just print him out. So if he dies, they copy what was in his memories, they put it into the new one and they learn from it, and he's kind of like a way for them to do experiments basically. So I was a bit confused as to why when Mickey 18 comes around, is he so different? He's violent, he's snarky, he is not a pushover like 17. And I know they're different each time, but they don't really explain why. And I wonder if that's something from the book. I didn't read the book, I just went to see the film. I think a film should be able to hold its own, even if it comes from a book as source material. And I was a bit confused as to why Mickey 18 was so different. I liked him as a character. I thought he was fun, but I just don't know why he was so different and so aggressive with everyone. Like he was the one who goes to do the assassination on the Trump character, and it seemed so out of character that there would be 17 Mickeys and then 18 would be the snarky one. Maybe he came of age. I don't know what it is. I don't know how the numbering system works with clones. There's also a character called Kai. And this was the part of the film that bothered me the most. Of all my criticisms of the film, it was Kai. Kai is number one. So Kai loses their girlfriend, Jennifer. I think it's Jennifer, who gets crushed in an expedition. And Kai is apparently very torn up about this from what we can tell initially. And then she's alone with Mickey at one point. And then she starts asking him about death because she's wondering what death's like and wondering what Jennifer might have felt or what have you. Clearly, she's trying to hold on to something or process something about her girlfriend's death, as you would. That makes a lot of sense. What doesn't make sense is how then she starts hitting on Mickey. What? Why? What are you talking about? Why? It was just a really bizarre writing choice to have Kai jump from mourning from a girlfriend to then wanting to have sex with Mickey. And I think it was just a poorly written female character. A couple of the female characters in this were poorly written. Kai wasn't the only one, but Kai was the worst of them. And then Kai finds out that they're multiples, and she tries to get herself a deal where she keeps Mickey 17 and Mickey's original girlfriend keeps Mickey 18, and they both share them. Are you not mourning, woman? What's going on? I thought you were upset about your girlfriend. Why are you suddenly jumping into bed with this guy who at no point before this can I recall them communicating that she had any interest in Mickey? What's going on? When I was in the theater, the moment that happened, I rolled my eyes. I couldn't handle how ridiculous it was. That's not how people act. At least no one I've met who's in any way a sensible person. They just wouldn't act like that. People need to process their feelings. If someone dies, it's a big deal. If your partner dies, someone you're involved with, you're not just going to go, okay, let me smash the nearest person at the next opportunity. That's so odd. I don't know how much time elapsed between those two things. I don't think it was very long, but she's still grieving like a scene before it. She's still upset about Jennifer's death. So I just don't understand why she would go from one to the other that quickly. That just felt like poor writing to me. Another character whose writing was a little bit up and down was Nasha. I'm not sure if it was Nasha or Naja. It's been a day since I watched it. But she seems relatively sensible. And then around the time that the multiples thing happens, she's high on like a drug. Her and Mickey 18 are both high on a drug. And her first thought, yeah, I guess she was high, but her first thought was, let's have a threesome. What is with the female characters in this film? Why is no one acting with any sense? That just really bugged me. Like, surely you would be concerned that your partner's about to be obliterated. I don't care if you're on a drug. I don't know how impaired your judgment is, but that just seemed really odd to me. Because they built her up as this really empathetic and compassionate character who's a really strong female character in the film. And then they just make her make this like really bizarre choice to not at all panic that her partner's part of a crime that will have them both incinerated. But now let's have a threesome with two of you. That's not a problem for me. And considering that she's so compassionate with Mickey and all of the Mickeys up to Mickey 17, she has no concern for how he's feeling. Yeah, you're on drugs, whatever. Why does she suddenly not care that he's upset? He's clearly bothered by this. And she's just following Mickey 18's drug-addled brain thoughts. It's just not good. It was just poor writing. I did not like it at all. That whole section of the film could have gone in a different direction and it would have improved the film massively, in my opinion. Maybe there are people who thought it was funny and liked it. It bugged me. I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking. So the plot of the film is nothing you haven't seen before. It's very similar to Avatar, very similar to like Dances with Wolves. Anything where people go to a new place to colonize or take over and then the natives fight back. It's exactly what you expect. You could predict the ending. There'll be a couple of details you won't be able to predict, but you've pretty much seen it before. That aside, I did enjoy it. I love a nice native people fighting back against the new people coming in trying to take over. Fuck you, new people coming in trying to take over. We were here first. As I said earlier, I would recommend going to see it. I would recommend watching it in some fashion. So anyway, I would recommend going to see this film. I thought it was pretty good. God damn camera again. Anyway, long story short, I would recommend going to see this film. I think it was pretty good. I think it's just good to support cinemas in general. If you want to wait for this one to be on streaming, wouldn't blame you. I don't think it's the most cinema of films. It wasn't like mind-blowing on the screen, but it was good. If you have the chance, go see it. I'd say maybe like a 6.5 out of 10, maybe a 7. Usually film ratings, I don't like to put a number on it, but for like a ballpark somewhere in that area, it's not an 8. But it was good, it was enjoyable, I laughed, I didn't cry. I could have cried. There is some sad stuff in it. There's a couple of scenes, you'll know them when they happen, there's a couple of bits that are a little bit distressing. But overall, it was pretty good. It was a pretty good movie. I give it Mickey 6.5 out of 17. No, that doesn't make any sense. I'd give it a decent score. There you go. If I watch it again in the future, I might rate it a little bit higher. I might enjoy it more, knowing what it's going for. My opinion might change with a rewatch. I'm not eager to rewatch this film. If I was going to rewatch a Robert Pattinson film, it would be Good Time. If you've not seen Good Time, go watch Good Time. This video is about to end. After this video, go watch Good Time. That's it. That's the end of this video.